you, and good morning, Speaker. My question is for the Premier. The gas plant trial of two former Liberal aides heard testimony yesterday that was described as, quote, a bombshell. IT expert Rolf Gitt testified that the province's Chief Information Officer, David Nicol, didn't seek access just to some computers in the Premier's office during her transition. He wanted broad and extraordinary access to all the computers in the Premier's office. Gitt's testimony contradicts the version given by Nicol earlier at trial and in sworn appearance at the Justice Policy hearings. Mr. Nicol, to this day, remains the province's Chief Information Officer. Speaker, to the Premier, should Ontarians be worried that our data is still at risk?
Thank you.
Attorney General.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And I just want to remind the member that, again, we have to be very careful. This matter is very much, as we know, is before the courts, and we have to respect that process. Speaker, our government takes our record-keeping obligations very seriously. We are committed to being open, accountable, and transparent. And we promise to open up the government completely, and we have done so in an unprecedented degree, Speaker. In a report, the Information and Privacy Commissioner have credited the government for improving record-keeping across the government. We sent a directive to all political staff. We have developed mandatory training programs. We have appointed chiefs of staffs accountable for record-keeping. We have improved archiving requirements, and we have passed the Accountability Act, which prohibits the willful deletion of records and creates a penalty for doing so.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Back to the Premier. Mr. Nicol asked for sweeping, elevated rights that allowed the wiping of data off all computers in the Premier's office. He left a, quote, erroneous impression with the Secretary of Cabinet, which led him to be granted that access. Speaker, there are still people here today working in Liberal offices who admitted deleting files. This was designed to deliberately thwart the public's right to information. Continuing with this pattern today, the Energy Minister still hasn't turned over all his emails due to the Auditor General. Now we see the credibility of the Chief Information Officer is in doubt. Speaker, to the Premier, why should anyone believe a word you say with your history of dodge, deny, and delete?
Please. I also remind all members, please address your comments to the chair. Attorney General.
Speaker, I just want to say to the member he should be very careful in how he is trying to apply a set of proceedings that are taking place in a court of law as we speak to the Premier of the day today. Speaker, the case relates to the former Premier of the province of Ontario. It does not deal with the current Premier. And so the member needs to be very careful as when he uses the term Premier and poses his commentary in this House. Speaker, let me be very clear. This Premier, the current Premier of Ontario, have taken unprecedented steps in making sure that the government is transparent and accountable. And, Speaker, the Information and the Privacy Commissioner has credited the government for improving record-keeping. And as I mentioned earlier in my question, we have taken specific steps to ensure that there is accurate record-keeping in the government.